And when I started again, I thought, what can I do? How do I help people? And I looked at the through line of my career and up until that point, and to this day, I'm always trying to help people share their stories and elevate their voices. And so, publishing books and marketing books was a natural progression out of that, because that's like the ultimate way to share your story.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of CEO Frequency. I am super excited to be here today with our special guest, Melanie Herschorn, who wants to help you step into your spotlight as an authority, which I know so many people struggle with when you're starting your business. You may have imposter syndrome, you may not feel like you're ready yet, and she really helps you elevate into that next level self. She's a book marketing and publishing strategist for business owners, consultants, speakers worldwide. She has a lot of experience. She was a celebrity publicist, she was an award-winning journalist, and she's a longtime entrepreneur herself. So I know she has so much to share with us. Thank you so much for being here, Melanie. Why don't you just tell us how you got to where you are today?
Thank you. It is my pleasure to be here, and I'm really excited to talk to you. And I did not take a linear approach to where I am. You kind of alluded to it, that I started out in celebrity PR, and then I got a master's in journalism. And meanwhile, I'm crossing the United States also. So there's a lot of movement and a lot of change. And I worked in Pennsylvania as a radio news anchor and reporter. And then I got laid off when I was pregnant. And because I had planned to have a baby in a non-election year, but you know what they say about planning and God laughing. So then I worked at a newspaper, and then I moved to Phoenix, where I am now. And I thought, well, I could pay a babysitter or a caregiver more money than I'll make as a journalist, or I could do something else. And I had this idea to design and manufacture breastfeeding clothing, which was kind of like a left turn, but I did it. And I sold my clothes on Nordstrom.com and on Amazon, and I got awards and got celebrities wearing them. And it was really amazing. And then I made a mistake, and I hired a marketer to help me. And it was the beginning of the end of that business. It was a toxic relationship, and there was a lot of belittling of me. And so I had to sort of close that down and start again. And when I started again, I thought, what can I do? How do I help people? And I looked at the through line of my career, and up until that point, and to this day, I'm always trying to help people share their stories and elevate their voices. And so, publishing books and marketing books was a natural progression out of that, because that's like the ultimate way to share your story.
Absolutely. Yeah. And what I love about your story is that you have such a beautiful story and you've learned so many things along the way, which I can't wait to dive into. I'm sure that you have so many lessons, but also you started over multiple times. Like there were several moments in that little story you just gave us where you said, I went back to square one. I was starting over, and sometimes in a completely different direction. So I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about those moments in your life where you thought, okay, I'm not happy with where I'm at in my story, or maybe I'm just not quite at the place I want to be. How did you make that decision to venture into something new, into a new chapter?
I don't know if it was that I made the decision, or if it was almost like a calling and the decision was made for me. But I'll give you the beginning one, when I went from being a publicist to being a journalist. There was a catalyst, and I feel like there's always been a catalyst. So when I left celebrity PR, it was because a famous comedian had told me off on my birthday twice. And I said, I don't have to stand for this. I don't have to be treated this way. There's another way. And so that was sort of the catalyst that got me. So if I'm looking at the trajectory of my career, there's always this catalyst. First, it was that comedian, and then it was getting laid off. And when I was pregnant from my journalism job, and then it was that marketer that I hired who really helped me run that business out of business. And I think that it's certainly not easy to it's never easy to do something from scratch, but I also would look back and say, well, I've done this before. And yeah, it's uncomfortable to be green and the newbie, and I'm not getting any younger. I'm still, I haven't figured that out yet. I don't know how to get younger. Um, I'm trying, but Botox isn't enough. And so it's that I've done this before, and I know that I can do it again. I think that that's really what it is. It's having that inner faith in yourself. I don't know if that can be
Yeah.
taught. I think
Yeah.
I don't know if that can be taught. I think you just have to really, if you don't believe in yourself, who will?
Right, right. It's something that comes from that experience and trusting yourself in those moments of uncertainty and doubt. And the funny thing is, it gets built from those exact experiences. I think it's a choice, self-trust, self-confidence more than anything else, because in those moments where you have to make a decision or you have to change your ways, if you don't trust yourself to do the right thing or what's best for you, then you're not working that muscle, so to speak. But if you do, you work that muscle, it builds up time after time after time. And you've had so many beautiful opportunities to do that. And so you have built that muscle, you have exercised that ability, which is really impressive.
Thank you. Because I come from a family where it's all quote unquote professionals, and they think that's like, I'm a little bit like, well, not nuts, but like, can't you just pick something and stick to it? I mean, my father's been working the same job for 45 years, and he loves it and he's happy. And, you know, I couldn't do, I mean, I've been alive for 45 years, but I don't know that I could be doing the same thing day in and day out for that long. That's a lot of commitment. And I like variety in life.
Yeah, variety is the spice of life, as they say.
That's
I
what they
agree with you
say.
there. Well, that's amazing. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. It's really inspiring. I'm curious, what is life like now for you? What are you focused on? What are you building?
Ooh, okay. So I'm building this publishing company, and it is so exciting. And I know I shared with you before we went live that I'm doing a full rebrand of the company, and I'm so excited because it's finally going to be, the name is absolutely the branding that I have been looking for. And you know, my goal is to help professionals publish. Professional meaning, if you have business and you are a professional human, then that is a professional business owner. I don't discriminate. um, to create a book that has momentum, that creates momentum in your business. So what makes me different from other publishers is that I am not telling you to publish a book and it's going to change your life, because it won't if you don't promote it. And so we have promotion built in, so that even from the first day of writing your book, you have an end goal in mind. And we're looking at everything through that lens. So that's what I'm building. I'm building a publishing house that is different and that supports business owners, entrepreneurs who really want to create a lasting tool that will help them market their business and grow.
I love that. That sounds so powerful. So what does a book or can a book do for an entrepreneur? Most of our listeners are going to be entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, business owners who, have built something incredible and probably, I would say probably a lot of them have thought about writing a book. What would you say are the benefits or the potential benefits if, like you said, you market it correctly?
Oh, they are so many. Okay, let me start from the beginning. So number one is maybe obvious, but it's building your credibility and your authority. Because when you write a book, you're standing out from somebody who does something similar to you, because they don't have a book. We treat people with books, or also known as authors, on a higher level. We put them on a pedestal. So That's the first piece. But there's so much more. It really is a marketing tool for your business because it opens up stages that wouldn't necessarily be available to you. Podcasts wouldn't necessarily be available to you. If you want to be on the media outlets are going to pick the person with a book over the person without a book when they're selecting an expert to come and speak. And more than that, more than just the visibility piece, there's the client getting piece of it. So if I said, oh, Ali, you're my ideal client. I really want you to work with me. I'm going to send you a book. Yeah. For the $10 or so, maybe less, that it costs me to send you the book, you read this book and you go, wow, Melanie really knows what she's talking about. I'm going to hire her. And let's say my average, then that's, I've got like 10 clients. So then I have like all this money coming in from the 10 books that I sent. So it's this beautiful lead generating tool. And it's also a client retention tool, because if you have somebody who's a client and you send them a book, they're going to be pretty impressed. And when it's time for them to, I don't know, rehire you or think about hiring you again, they're going to go, oh yeah, the book. That's right. I just love this person so much. Maybe your book has been on their nightstand for over a year. That is not uncommon, and you'll always be on their mind. So it's great and then, I don't want to disregard this piece. There's that legacy piece of it. Everybody has a story to tell, and yours deserves to be told. So even if you're creating a book that is a marketing tool, you 100% want to weave in pieces of your experience into that. And so even though it may be a how-to guide on, creating a widget, it also is going to talk about how you developed that widget and what was going through your mind and other interesting pieces and facts of your life.
I love that. It's so true. So true. And what's interesting is, it is different from all the other things we create today. Writing a book, publishing a book is worlds different from having a massive social media following, from tweeting every day and from posting reels on Instagram or even YouTube videos, even long form content. It's just not the same. And of course, those things gain you massive visibility, great marketing tools, great conversion tools as well. But there's something more weighty about a book. There's more weight to it. There's more significance because it's obviously something you put a lot of time and attention and intention into, as opposed to just that kind of regular content that most people are pumping out like in droves, right? It's much more accessible content on social media, and a book is a little bit more significant in that way.
And it's also your own intellectual property. You own it, right? I always say that we're just parking our cars on the metaverse parking lot, hoping we don't get towed. Because you never know when your Instagram account's going to be gone, just because. And not that social media is not a wonderful tool, it is. But that exclusively, you don't own it. And your content becomes their content at the end of the day.
Right. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And I think the results speak for themselves. In fact, there's a coaching company that I'm aware of that I've actually bought a program from that, you made me think of speaking about this. I bought their program in 2021. It was a high four-figure investment. It was a group program, and they'd been around maybe 2 years when I started working with them, maybe 2 years, probably about 18 months. And within the first 18 months of launching their business, they scaled to, I believe, $3 or $4 million in revenue. And I was amazed at those results for themselves. But I realized it's because the owner of the company, the founder, had written 6 or 7 books over the last decade, right? So when he decided to go out and turn that knowledge into an actionable, concerted effort with, accountability and group coaching and personalized sessions, like an actual coaching program, of course it blew up because he had the authority. he had tons of people out there who had already read his books over the years. He'd co-authored several books with other people. So the authority was established. So no wonder when he started his company, they scaled to $4 million in 18 months. It makes perfect sense. They had that foundation built. And I'm sure you've seen really similar results over the years.
Absolutely. When you have a book, it sets you apart. I had a client, he already had a very successful wealth management company. And then he wrote a book and published the book, and we started working on the marketing piece. And the minute he started doing the marketing part of it, all of a sudden he was no longer lurking on LinkedIn. He was actually posting and he started getting calls or direct, I guess it was more DMs, not phone calls, uh, asking him to speak on stages. And these were paid speaking engagements. People are buying 300 books at a time because they say, oh, you know what? I've known you for years, but now you're a real authority and I want to pay you to speak to my people. It's true. It's when you have the book, you are the authority. You can say, you know what? Yeah, I'm an expert and I wrote the book on it.
Exactly, exactly. So my next question is a little bit more, I want to dig a little deeper into the process of writing and publishing a book and, what makes a successful book launch? Like what are the key ingredients, not only in terms of what makes a successful book, right? Like if somebody out there listening to this right now is like, okay, yeah, I should probably write a book. It sounds like a great idea. Where do you begin in thinking about, okay, this is the anatomy of a successful book? This is the anatomy of a successful launch as well. What did most people miss out on if they're not clued in to the correct process of actually launching and marketing their book?
Whew, this is I'm going to try to narrow down because I had like 50 answers firing in my head all at one time because this is a fantastic question. And I think that what people miss is that it really isn't about the book launch. And that might be like, what do you mean it's not about the book launch? People find, they okay, when people, I'm like tripping over my words, trying to get it all out. When people come to me, the first thing they say is, I don't know what I don't know. Can you please help me? I'm so new to this business, meaning the idea of publishing a book. I'm an expert in what I do, but I don't know how to publish a book. And I say, oh, that's easy. Let me show you. And I take them step by step. So first we write. And then because I'm an independent publisher, what I help people do is publish under their own imprint. So let's say your company is called Chanel, for example. I don't know where I got that idea. And you could be, Chanel Media. You could register that and publish under Chanel Media, although I think it's probably taken. Anyway, we help you through the whole process. So writing, and then we get it edited for you professionally. Then we are going to help you get a really fun book cover that really speaks to what your market needs to see. And the interior layout of a book, you'd be surprised what goes into that. And then we're going to publish it for you on Amazon and on something called Ingram Spark, which is the platform through which all the other stores get their books. So Barnes and Noble and Target and Walmart and all those other. If your book does not exist on this particular platform, it can't be sold at bookstores. So that's why we put it there too. And then we work on all the while we are working on a promotion plan for you for after the book. But what I'm going to say is the book launch is not the climax that everybody thinks it is. Because inevitably, you get to the climax, you get to the book launch, and if you don't have a plan for long-term marketing, it's like a rocket taking off into space and crashing into the ocean. That is the mistake I see literally every day. But I'm a one person here. I can't fix it all, even though I want to. So ideally, you have a promotion plan in place before you launch. So now I've taken you through all the steps of how to launch a book. And the long-term plan is leveraging other people's audiences, getting really great book reviews for your book, and going on stages and getting media opportunities. And this is all doable, but you want to focus on the long term even before you start concerning yourself with the day of launch. Have I confused you?
Love that.
I know it's a little
No,
confusing. It's a little topsy-turvy, but I think that that's people
I
are
love
always
it.
so like hyper focused on well the book launch, and I'm saying, but what happens after?
Right.
It's
Continuity.
right. It's like I believe fairy tales ruined me because I used to think that it was happily ever after. You know, you just have to find your Prince Charming and then it's going to be happily ever after. Well, marriage isn't always easy. So I think it's almost the same thing. It's like we think that as long as we publish the book, then it's going to be happily ever after. And so it isn't always that way. You have to have a plan.
Hmm. Interesting. Yeah. Very good point. Very good point. I mean, speaking of the fact that it's not always that easy, I'm curious, like, what are some of the biggest challenges that you see people face or that you yourself, when helping people through this process, might face in the process of writing, launching, publishing, and long-term promoting a book?
It's all time consuming. It's not impossible, but it's time consuming and it exercises muscles that you don't always use. You have to do a lot of introspection, and some people don't like that so much. And, you know, the way we write on Instagram is very different than the way you would write a book. Um, but you know, because we write in emojis sometimes, and I wouldn't recommend writing in emojis in a book necessarily. And I mean, I love AI, and I love utilizing AI to help me write some of my blog posts, for example. But I'm surely not going to use AI to write a book because that's just a no-no, and Amazon won't even put it up. So the mistakes I feel that people can avoid is by going into it thinking, okay, this is going to be a long-term process. It's not, you know, yes, you can write a book in a weekend. It's not how I do things, but you know, if you give yourself a year from start to finish, then you will have a product that is working for you way before the end of that year is out.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, being intentional about it, not rushing the process, not cutting corners using AI or, I mean, I'm curious, this might be a bit of a controversial question, but how do you feel about ghostwriters?
Oh yeah, I think ghostwriters are great. If you,
Really?
yeah, and you know, it's up to the individual. Sometimes they add their ghostwriter's name to the cover of the book. Sometimes they don't. Ghostwriters can be very costly, but if that's the route you want to take, then I think that's great because it's still your story. They're just
Hmm.
making it in a cohesive way. And
Right.
I think that getting your story out is the most important piece, no matter how you do it. Kind of like however you're a parent, you're still a parent, however it happens.
Right. Yeah, I love that. That's a really good point. And for another sort of maybe more controversial or just like a trickier question, I'm curious, like, do you think anybody and everybody should write a
No,
book, or do you feel there's certain people that probably shouldn't?
no, not everybody should write a book.
Okay.
I don't think everybody should write a book because it is not an inexpensive endeavor. And if you don't already have an established business that is bringing in money all the time, I would wait because first of all, you're still at the beginning. How are you going to be an authority on something that you don't have the authority to talk about yet? That isn't to say that you shouldn't do it later. But then there are some people who, you know, having a book really isn't going to benefit their business at all. For an example, somebody who doesn't work with clients. I mean, if you don't work with somebody that, if you work with machines, machines aren't going to read your book. So, yeah.
Really good point. Really good point. Are there certain types of books or types of stories, you could say, that you see as more likely to succeed or more successful in general after the fact? Like, you see sort of how-to books, like there's that girl, How to Build a Goddamn Empire, right? Female entrepreneur, built a really successful software platform, went out and wrote this book, and it's definitely like kind of a step-by-step guide, but with analogies and anecdotes and quotes and experiences just like sprinkled into the book. Or on the other hand, something that is more of a story, not fiction, but more of a chronologically told story, or versus something like Brianna Weiss, The Pivot Year, right? Where it's like a day by day little excerpt of something to focus on that day. I'm sure all of them could be successful, but with your experience, is there anything you've seen as, definitely a winner in terms of structure or story style?
I'm going to throw a curveball to you, and I'm going to say it really matters how you market it, because I think you're going to have readers for all three types of those books. And if you show those readers prior to them purchasing the book what's in it for them, because that's all we really want. We go to a website, we look at it, what's in it for me? We go to social media, we're scrolling. Anything we stop, it's because it's what's in it for me. Oh, that's something that's about me and I like me. So I'm just going to think about me. So if you market the book where it's every single day, well, every single day you will have something to follow. Or here's a how-to that's going to help you get success, health, money, relationship happiness, whatever we want. And then what was the third one? The third one was just a sort of a narrative. Was that the third narrative example? Okay. If we see ourselves in that person and their story resonates with us, then we'll want to read that book too. So I had a client who wrote a book that at first was basically being called a pandemic memoir. And I said to him, nobody wants to talk about the pandemic anymore. We have to reframe this. And so we did. We reframed it, the marketing, as sort of a father's experience learning about what it's like to parent a child who is neurodiverse. And when we reframed it, he pitched it to a bookstore in Colorado that he had really wanted to get in, and he got in. And this was after the pandemic was over and people are not talking about it anymore. So I think the marketing piece is so crucial. And you market something good and people will buy it.
I love that. Yeah, really, really good. It's got to be a solid book. It also has to be marketed well, which I think is true of any product, any service that you want to sell. It's just the same process. So I love that. So I'm curious, are there any favorite books you can share with us? Anything that you feel really stands out that's changed your life or changed your clients' lives?
Yeah, well, my life, I'll just talk about me. I have it right there. I can play show and tell if you like. I like show and tell. Okay. So when I read this book, The Go-Giver by Bob Burg and John, actually no, John David Mann. I don't know why I can't remember his name, but I fangirled so hard on Bob Burg that it turned out that we were connected on LinkedIn, and I have spoken with him, and he did a shout out for me on LinkedIn about my book, which was really cool. But what I love about this book, it's a parable. So, which is not normally what I read. I love nonfiction. I'm not a big time fiction reader, but it really it goes to the whole idea that when you give, you receive tenfold. And so if you think about any relationship that you have in business, how can I help somebody? What can I do to support them? Somehow, some way, you're going to get some wonderful return. And so that's really what the book is about. It's a short read, it's a very well-known book, and I always recommend it.
I love that. Yeah, I've actually seen that a lot lately, The Go Giver. I've seen that on Pinterest, Instagram. Somebody mentioned it to me in conversation, so I think it's a sign I have to read it
A sign
next.
you have to read it, and we can be friends on LinkedIn, of course, and then you can tag Bob Burg, and he'll be very excited. I started posting pictures of
Yes.
myself with the book. He was like, "Okay, who is this person?"
I love it. I love it. So tell us about your book. It sounds like you have written and published a book yourself.
Absolutely, I have. So it's called Make a Big Impact with Your Book. And it really speaks to, nonfiction books and how to market them in an effective way. And it's a short read. It's very much a how-to, and it shares, anecdotes about my clients, some of the crazy things that I experienced in my career, which you've heard some of it today. And it's a good primer for you to say, okay, so what do I really have to get in place in order to start marketing my book effectively?
I love that. I love that. I'll have to check that out. We'll have to put it in the show notes too, because I'm sure a lot of people would gain a lot of knowledge from that. In fact, that might make a good episode title. Make a big impact with your book. I love that title.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Awesome. So, how do people work with you? Like, if somebody was like, yes, I want to write a book, I want to work with Melanie, she obviously knows what she's doing. How do people engage with you and you just gain your expertise through that process?
Well, I'm all over the internet. Well, not really, but you can find me. Everything is on my website. It's vipbookmarketing.com. And I know that website will change one day soon, but there will always be a redirect. So you can always go there. And, I have a free ultimate book marketing checklist you can grab. I also have some other great free resources all over, and you can book a call with me directly and read blog posts and play with me in the sandbox.
Awesome. Awesome. We'll put all of the links in the show notes. I am super excited about that. I'm going to have to reach out and book a call. Really great stuff. Really great stuff. I guess, is there any advice you'd give to someone, as we kind of wrap up this episode, somebody who's listening who feels like they want to write a book, they're not sure where to start? What's your best piece of advice for that person?
So the not knowing where to start part can be really daunting. And I want you to think about what your mission of your book would be. Why are you going to write this? What's the purpose? What's your passion? If it's for your business, then is it to impart your knowledge? Is it to make the world a better place in some way? Whatever that is, start there. And then just start, free writing of all the things that you want to share. And you will see that there is going to be a lot of gold nuggets there that can be turned into a book.
Love it. Love it. Really great point. Yeah, just open a doc and start stream of consciousness, right?
Yeah.
Like just get
Yeah.
it down on paper. I think that's really great advice and not with no direction, right? Knowing what your intention and your purpose is, but letting yourself flow, like not stopping yourself, not censoring yourself, not editing anything yet, right? And just like letting it flow out of you in the most natural way possible. Love that.
Absolutely.
Cool. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing all of this with us today. It was really enlightening for me too. Very exciting stuff.
Oh, I'm so glad. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Yeah, thanks for joining us today. I'm sure we'll talk soon.